recording. So thank you for joining me. I'm very delighted to address you directly. It's really nice. I already missed, I have to tell you, I already missed one time to meet you in 2014. You were in Turkey, in Istanbul.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, the first or second year I read it already, almost all your books. And I think it was the time when we had the exams as well in the medical university, and I couldn't get any chance to fly to Istanbul, and it was really, I felt miserable.
Oh, no, trust me, you didn't miss much.
Yeah, now I missed already, but it's okay. After 12 years, here we are. As publisher and writer, that's really nice. That's something to achieve. I'm really happy about it.
No, me too. And I'm also I'm a big believer in the idea that things happen when they have to happen, you know, and there's an element of fate in all of our lives, and you can't force those things either. Well, sometimes,
that's right.
And my dad, who was a very superstitious person, is a very superstitious person, always used to say, "You never know what it's good for." You know, if something didn't happen, or if something, he'd say, so it's good. I mean, and this is great. So and I'm so happy to be talking to you as for Azerbaijani publisher, and you never think you're going to have a book published in such a great and exotic place too. So I'm really thrilled, and I'm grateful to you and to the readers of that country as well, because these are the dreams you think will never happen.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I made some questions and I tried to be so authentic. I don't want to use the word authentic, but I tried to find some questions you didn't answer, hopefully. So first of all, I can speak for my own generation, but also from years of watching readers online, especially with the Messenger and the Wolf Brothers books. There seems to be a very deep connection people form with them at a specific age in life. So what strikes me is that if you look at what actually happens in these books, they don't really fit the structure of a conventional young adult novel. They offer something larger, perspective, hope, a sense of humanity, even the feeling that doing good might give life meaning. And I already reread The Messenger a couple times in the last 14 years. And I started wondering whether you were consciously exploring that idea too, especially with the mysterious figure near at the end, who feels both like a stranger and somehow deeply familiar at the same time, with your describing of clothes, which we can probably tell that's you, probably. So did you realize while writing that the novel was becoming in some sense a moral or spiritual coming-of-age story rather than simply of a young adult novel about a boy who has a crush on a girl and try to get her?
Yeah, I think The Messenger was a big step for me, and I think I was thinking more that I wanted to write something bigger in length, and I wanted something that was more plot-driven. The first 3 books were very character-driven, as I think The Messenger is too, or I Am the Messenger, depending which title we go with, because it's had different ones. And as far as like the idea of the structure of things, I'm very much interested in how stories are put together, and actually how words are put together. And I very much feel like a tradesman and not an artist. An artist, I feel like, it's like a calling, but a tradesman, you have to do the work all the time. Yeah, always, not to say that artists don't work hard, but so to me, what I'm trying to say is I don't have a very high intellect, I don't have a really, I'm not being modest. It's not that, or trying to be humble. It's not, but what I have is certain abilities, and what I try to do is maximize those abilities. And so what I'm trying to say is, for example, is that I have only a small pool of words compared to, say, certain other writers who have great vocabulary and ability to use it. But even with a small pool of words, it's how you arrange the words and the combinations of the words. And you can see, even by the look on my face, the way I'm smiling talking about that, is that's what really excites me about writing, is that you can take very ordinary words, put them together in a way that suddenly things really burst to life, and that you're seeing the world in a way that you both recognize but you've never seen before. And that's what I'm trying to do. And with a story like The Messenger, I wrote that book very much, I was such a different writer then, and I was very uncontrolling. And I knew that I wanted 52 chapters in the suits of the playing cards, from ace through to king, and for each part. And what I did, I sat down and I started with diamonds, and I thought, right, I need 13 chapters. And I wrote the first part, and then I was already starting to think, who's at the end, who's giving the messages? And it was when I got to the end of part one that I realized who that person was going to be. And then that turned on its head the whole idea that, these characters, even when Ed is running or even when Ed is doing something, it's me who's making that happen. And so I was really interested in the idea of storytelling and the writer and the reader and the characters. And so I wrote part one, and then I went, right, now I got to solve the problems of part two. And then I thought, now I got to solve part three. And so the challenges were finding ways to send Ed on all of these different quests, and so it couldn't just be the three addresses written again. I had to make him, learn riddles and things like that. And so to me, this, honestly, there are a couple of things when I look back on writing that book. One is I realize it's probably the book out of all 7 books I've had published. This is the book that was the most enjoyable to write. And secondly, whenever I revisit it, for like in a moment like this, or if I read over something just because I might be doing something in a school, I read a little bit of it and I go, boy, I really kept things moving back then. And I feel like there was a lightness in the way that I was approaching writing, and I was really trying to make my way as a writer, but I wasn't so serious yet. And I was just in my 20s, I was at a particular age, and I was trying to make things happen.
Okay, I can't argue about that. Okay. So as we were finishing the translation of The Messenger, I spent a long time thinking about how to translate the title properly. Mm-hmm. So the problem is the main problem is the last sentence of the book. Not the messenger and the message. So this rhythm between two words, messenger and the message, to find the proper version of that in Azerbaijani was really challenging. So probably as well, they had another title in Turkish for the messenger, and the translation of it is "Nobody is the ordinary," something like that. So I thought, okay, probably I can find something like this from the book directly. And the quote in the book, I really liked it, and actually I thought about it. Can I use that as the title or not? And I can read that to you. It says, "I did it because you are the epitome of ordinariness. And if a guy like you can stand up and do what you did for all those people, well, maybe everyone can. Maybe everyone can live beyond what they are capable of. Maybe even I can." This epitome of ordinariness, I really loved it. I thought probably it felt like the entire soul of the book. But at the end, with we found another version of the messenger, and we used that, and I think you can translate it in English like ambassador as well. So it felt right, and we used it. But still, this epitome of ordinariness, it was kind of catchy for me. So I wanted to ask you two questions. First of all, do you think we sometimes look too far upward for hope, toward powerful people, celebrities, or political leaders as well, while forgetting that real human change usually begins with ordinary individuals? Or Ed Kennedy was indeed an extraordinary human being and needed to remember that through this challenging you gave him.
Okay.
That's
Yep.
question
First
one.
question,
Second,
yeah.
I will ask after it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think we do. And I think maybe as I get older, I less so look to greater figures or songwriters or actors and, or even the writers that I love. But I think we do probably look quite far. I mean, even I think within our own circle, there are enough people, young and old, who we look up to, and even something. I'll give you a really small example. Is that one of the things I love is surfing, and when you're sometimes when we're in the water sometimes, and the waves are coming, and then it starts to the sun goes down, and we start to get worried, because when the sun's going down, there's more activity in the water of fish, and if there are fish, there are bigger fish, and if there, and so we worry a little bit about sharks and so on, and so one of my really good friends, and he's a pilot, but he's an ordinary guy, but he's really one of my heroes, because once we were in the water, and then we said, we better leave, we better go home, back to the beach. And he caught a wave, and then I was there waiting for the next wave, and I waited. It must have been 10 minutes, because no waves came. And there was just this deep part of the water before the waves started breaking again towards shore. And this is a very dangerous place to be. You don't want to be in the deep water. And then when I finally caught a wave, and to get out, and then I have to paddle through that deep water, he was there waiting for me. And this is where you think he didn't just go to the beach; he waited in the water for me. And I think these are actually and you think, that's my guy, that's the guy. That's my real friend. That's someone who's putting himself after me, to wait for me, so that we're like brothers, and so. That, I think, is, you don't have to look very far for these moments. And actually, people achieving great things, we need to look to those people, but often it is the people closest to us, that we're usually complaining about, who are doing, the best things for us. Just wait 1 second.
Yeah, it's okay.
Is that you? Come in. Here, come. You can come say hello. This is quite fitting, because my dog was wanting to come in.
Yeah,
so
it's
he's
okay.
now drinking. You're getting a good view of him.
Yeah.
It's funny, because I just fed him, and now he wants his drink, and I could hear him banging on my door. Hey, come here. Come say hello properly. Come. That's my boy. Yeah, that's better. All right.
Really
you can
handsome.
go and relax now. Go on. You said hello. All right. Now, but yeah. So I think, it's the little things like that that are really important. And I think you're so right that, and I look at even the sacrifice, and as a parent, even you look at your daughter or whatever, and you see amazing things happen all the time, and you're really happy to have these things in your life. And actually, that's what we're alive for. And while, and these things might be the epitome of ordinariness, like watching your daughter take her first steps, or to say your name for the first time, or whatever. But these, actually, there aren't actually better moments in our lives than that. I don't think. Whether it's having a book published or achieving great things, it's actually at our home level, I think, that we have our greatest moments.
Yeah. And what did you mean with maybe even I can in that quote? You think you reached that goal? Now you
Probably
are
not.
somewhere over your 30s.
Yeah, well over, let's say. Yeah, I am. I think that's ongoing, and I think we succeed and fail every day, and I think, you know, we're always asking what's the best good we can put into the world. You know, whether you're a doctor, a publisher, a writer, a builder, or a garbage collector. You know, you can. It's how. I always remember one line from the movie Chariots of Fire, and it's not one of the best lines even in the movie. I'm just remembering it now, but because there's a religious character in that film, someone says to him, you know, you can honor God by peeling a potato, and if you do it perfectly, if you do it the very best, if you do it lovingly, and I think that's true, but also. And I'm always thinking, you know, how am I best supposed to contribute to the world? And so for me, I guess the best way that I can contribute to the world is writing, and I shouldn't be wasting that. But it just takes me a long time to write a book. That's the problem. But it never used to. The Messenger I wrote in 1 year, and really I wrote. Very much like I said in the parts, I wrote the first part maybe in January, the second part in April or May, the third part in August, and the fourth part in October. And then I was editing. But, you know, I didn't quite get it right at the end. I didn't quite, but I was taking risks, you know, and I like that idea. And I think risk-taking is an important thing, even if it's in little ways, whether it's just talking to someone that you're maybe a little bit afraid of, or asking someone something, or having the courage to do that. So in that way, and it's funny, I thought the line you were going to say, not so much the epitome of ordinariness, but one of the lines that I think would be not a bad alternative title of the book is, there's a moment when Ed says to the girl, Sophie, who's the athlete, the running girl who runs, and she says something like, "Are you a saint or something?" And he says, "No,
I remember that.
he says, "I'm just another stupid human." and I think
that could be a good title as well. Yeah,
would be a fun title. And maybe that's if I was to write another book about Ed, maybe that's what I should call it.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Actually, it's funny you mentioned about the ending, because I asked on our social media to our readers what they would ask you about this or another book of you, and many of the questions is about the ending. Especially our translator asked about it as well. Why so? And would you change it if you had the chance, or did you have any alternative ending for the book as well? Because it's a little bit, the fourth wall is gone, and so I think it's a little bit what's the right word to describe it? So it wasn't quite the literal fictional book we expected with the ending.
Yeah,
I mean,
and it could so easily have been anyone from within the book, but to me, that wouldn't have been such a revelation. And to me, it was far riskier. So here's the thing: I don't risk that that's what it was. What I regret a little bit is that I didn't have the skills or the patience, or even the knowledge of maybe crime fiction or mystery fiction to lay better traps, so that when people arrive at that ending, they can trace back to moments and go, it was him all along. Oh, it was him all along. Oh, I don't feel like I don't think I did the proper groundwork to really make the ending stick. I know that there were times, like, the important line is when I, as the writer, say to Ed, I killed your father. In the sense of I made that happen to you because you're my character and I'm your writer. And just that idea of, and then Ed's running at one point, I think, and he's saying, but I know there's no use because I'm trying to keep up, but I don't actually have free will. But I have it because he's given me free will to have these thoughts. And so, again, I just sort of, even if I feel like I didn't get it right, I wouldn't change it. And it's like a sentence I kind of like is, yeah, I have regrets and I would change things, but not if it took all of this away from me. So not if it took the rest of the book away from me, not if it took Ed Kennedy away from me. I think, and the way I look at it is this, when every time a book goes off to be printed and it gets published, you have to have regrets, and you have things that you wish you could change, and that's why you write your next book. You write your next book to atone for the sins of the last one, and I think that's a good place to start, and then this is just going to keep happening again. So I think every book, whilst it's the most important thing in the world to you at that time, it's also just a training run. It's two things. It's the most important thing in the world to you, but not to the rest of the world. Like you have to always think that, it's so important, but it's also meaningless. And at the end of the day, it's just one more training run for trying to get it right the next time as well.
Yeah. So my favorite writer, one of my favorite writers is Stephen King. And once I read his book about writing, the book named actually itself as well on writing. He says that art begins with imitations. So that imitating good literature at the beginning can actually help a writer discover and improve their own voice. When I was around 18, I tried to write something, and I remember after a while I read what I wrote, and I saw at some point I was unconsciously imitating your style, and also Craig Silvey to some extent as well. So I felt like I had your structure and his vocabulary. And after reading all of your books, I noticed something very distinctive in your writing style, the emotional punchline is only 2 or 3 words, standing completely alone in a paragraph, that then another short sentence, sometimes even a single word, and somehow it carries enormous emotional weight. So I've always been curious about that stylistic choice because I didn't see that on another writers as well. So why are you drawn to that kind of simplicity and fragmentation, rhythm and structure?
It's funny because I don't necessarily recognize that I do it. I'm very much feeling for the words, and even though I feel like I'm a technician, like I definitely feel like and like I said, a tradesman where I'm building everything. But at the same time, simultaneously, I'm very emotional as a writer and as a person probably. And so I'm very much, if I hear a voice in my head and I say, just do that, and then leave it. You feel the full stop there, put the full stop there, and then next line, do that. And then have the intelligence or the emotional intelligence or maybe the I don't want to say artistic intelligence, but to leave it, especially if it's not correct, especially if it shouldn't be correct, especially if that's not how you're supposed to do it. And so sometimes, or a word that is not actually a word in English, and it's just an appropriation of a word in English, and then I think, no, just keep that. An example at the start of The Book Thief is there's the word lovely but then I decided after the word lovely to put another ILY on to say that snowflakes were falling so lovelily from the sky, and this is actually improper English, but it was right for the book. And so this is what I'm always thinking, that I'm not trying to be correct, I'm trying to be right, and to be right for that book. And I want it to feel a certain way. I want you to feel something. And the big thing is, I want you to feel like you're there. This is all, and I say to people, you know, all kinds of, you know, advice people ask about writing, and I say, all I'm trying to do is I just want you to feel like you're there, like that you're in. It's just black work. This is what made me want to be a writer. And you talked about imitation. You know, I wanted to be S.E. Hinton, you know, from reading The Outsiders and Rumblefish and these great masterworks of young adult literature. And to me, it was such a magical thing. And you can see me light up when I talk about this, that being 14 and sitting in my bedroom with my brother asleep on the other side of the room, and me just reading these books, and it's black words on white paper, but I'm seeing it in color. I'm there. I'm with them. And that's what I say. I love movies because you see the characters. But I love books because I feel like when it's working, you become the characters. You become what's inside these books. And that's what, you know, to me, this is such a magical thing. And, you know, to the point where now I've almost half forgotten the question, but I know that idea is, it comes also back to, I was like you, writing when I was 18, and then I finished a book and it was rejected by publishers. Then I wrote another one and I thought, that's too much like the first one. And then I went through a very dark period, or not a dark period, but a fallow, dry period where I couldn't get anything to work, you know. And what I realized is that those 3 years were really valuable because I wasn't happy anymore with imitating my heroes. I was trying to find my own voice. And that idea of those short sentences and words kind of on their own, and just kind of this idea of poetic language in prose, and you notice a lot of white on my pages. So, you know, they're not very dense. They're not written kind of like novels, but they're not poems either. So to me, it was a poetic way of writing. That was mine. And I remember, and this is the last, I'm finally going to shut up, but I remember when I was a kid, and my dad, I lost a race at athletics, at the athletics field. And I thought I'd won, and they put me in sixth spot. And I went crying to my dad and said, I thought I won, and they put me in number 6. And he said, well, I thought you won as well. I thought you won too. But he said, but you made a big mistake. You didn't win by enough. You have to win by so much that no one can take it off you. And this was a big lesson, and I've always remembered it. And the way I think of that in writing, and this is what I say to people, is, you know, without being ridiculous and without just acting out, but what you're trying to do is write a book. You know, the reason you love Stephen King, I'm sure, is because no one can do what Stephen King does. Whether there are better writers than Stephen King, you know, there are better, you know, more beautiful writers than Stephen King, but only Stephen King can do Stephen King. And
that's right.
And so my goal is to write so much like myself that nobody else could have written this book. It doesn't have to be better. It just has to be so much like me that no one else. And I know, and I think The Messenger was that idea. The Messenger was me starting to really pour myself into books and write the way that only I can write. And then I think The Book Thief was an extension of that, you know, where I really made another big leap into writing in a way that felt totally like myself. And you know, and I think if nothing else, that's what I'm happy with in my writing career. I wish I'd written more books. I wish I'd been more productive, but because of that, I've written, I feel like, books that only at least I could have written, and I have to be happy with that. But I think there are better books out there, but it doesn't matter. You just want to write like yourself.
You gave us already a whole world with your books. More could be better, of course, but we are happy what we have.
I'm trying.
So, I want to talk about Audrey in the Messenger. For many readers, and after a while for me as well, she felt almost like a disturbance in the force, as they say in the Star Wars universe. She doesn't want to settle down. She avoids commitment, and she clearly has her own emotional boundaries and reasons for that, no judgment about it. But yet, still, Ed loves her and doesn't really give up on trying to reach her. So that made me think about how love functions in your world, and also how your own understanding of it maybe have evolved over time after many years of writing The Messenger. Do you see love more as a reflection of a person's inner world and values, like Ed? Or do you think love is something dependent on morality and doings of the person we love?
I think probably still like Ed. I mean, I was always, I think, quite maybe, I don't know, I can't speak for other writers, but I spent a lot of time alone. And it's funny because I spoke at my old university maybe 2 months ago and to give the speech at a graduation. And I said two things. One was that no one would ever have imagined, if they saw me there at that university for those 3 years or 4 years, that I would be the one coming back to give a speech. I was really I spent a lot of time alone, and I think a lot of my characters are lonely figures, and they're usually in search of connection. And you look at Cameron Wolfe, in search of connection, Ed Kennedy, and actually what they're quite desperately, not necessarily looking for, but hoping for, is for somebody to recognize them and to recognize the value in them. And I think that's probably how we all feel, especially maybe when we're younger and when we're teenagers. But I think even as an adult, you're hoping that people will find the attributes in you that are true and that are buried and that are not superficial, and that people who are out in the world, making a show of themselves, don't have. So I think, Ed or Cameron, they want people to see their substance, and I think, and because Ed is always being pushed away by Audrey, who she actually wants that superficial idea because it's safer, and so I guess it's and even you're the first person to ever ask me that. And so I'm not even sure if what I'm saying is true. but I think in that sense, I think there's always a character in a book who is the real hero of the book that we don't understand is the real hero. And maybe I think Audrey is that character in The Messenger because she doesn't give in to Ed and make things easy for him. And she keeps him at arm's length. She gets mad at him. She also has to take a tremendous leap of courage herself to then let him in, or for her to cross over to him where he's waiting for her to share that life of greater depth. And so maybe she's the real hero of The Messenger, even though it says at the end that the doorman, that he is the sage, he is the wisdom. But I very much, I think that's true. Whereas I think in, say, the Wolfe brothers books, I always say to people that actually the mum is the real hero of that book because, she's out there working. She's out there. She's the one who kind of keeps the family together when their dad loses the job. And actually there's a great sign of respect for her where her sons between each other, they call her Mrs. Wolf. Yeah, they don't call her mum. And so, and I think that's how I always felt about my own mum, you know. And so all these little pieces of yourself are so important, I think, to put into your writing. And you know, even, and I realized that even today when, you know, I answered a letter someone wrote to me where, you know, they thought that one of my characters might have been based on someone. They weren't trying to attack me, but they said that maybe Reuben Wolf sounded like they actually had an ancestor called Reuben Wolf who was a boxer, and you know, and that I'd never heard of, and so, but it made me sort of, when I outlined where the name Reuben came from and why I chose the name Wolf and everything, there are all these bits and pieces of yourself that you're always funneling into your books in the similar way to how Stephen King talks about it on writing, where he says something along the lines of all writers have this sort of catcher that's sort of like, it's like there's a drain or something from the roof and he catches the horror ideas or the suspense ideas, and me, I'm sort of collecting characters and maybe unusual images and things like that make me want to continue to write. And so, yeah, so in that sense, the character of Audrey I didn't realize I was doing it at the time, but you know, there was just something between those two characters that I was trying to get right in the sense of their characters and as they're part of the story. And that's all I'm really trying to do. I'm just trying to make the thing work, and then hopefully the depth is there for people to read into, as you have in this case.
Okay. All right. I can go on the whole day, but to stop somewhere with my questions, and that could be my last question probably. So in the
you
messenger,
can ask more, it's fine.
in the messenger, being needed, as you described earlier as well, being needed by others slowly gives it a reason to exist. And I think that idea is both beautiful and dangerous at the same time, because many people, especially young people, secretly wait permission to matter, especially in these times. They wait for a mission, a want, a catastrophe, or someone to save. But your novel almost suggests that meaning does not arrive dramatically, and it begins the moment a person chooses responsibility for another human being. So I wanted to ask, you think purpose is something we discover about ourselves, or something we create by deciding to care?
Yeah, I think this is something that I have two children. One's nearly 20, and one's nearly 16. And the one thing that just being out in the world with them, and especially with my son who's nearly 16, or if someone comes to our house or someone that they've never met before, and I just always say, and I think it's something my parents taught me, is I just say, you know, there are two ways that this person can go away after meeting you or talking to you. And one is that they're not moved in any way whatsoever. But the other is that they can feel like you really valued them. Just by in the way that you say hello and that you take an interest and that you look at them and you ask how they are, or you ask them questions. And so, again, that's actually quite a small thing. It's not the biggest thing in the world to do, but I think when you actually look at someone and you smile at them and you give something of yourself to them, like where you're saying, I'm actually interested in you. And I think at the end of the day, I think that's kind of what we all kind of want, is for people to be interested in us and to see us. And so it comes back to that idea again that I talked about earlier, of where I felt quite invisible all through probably my later teenage years and all through university. And for me, I thought that, you know, this was, I had to really write something to make something great, but it's not that. And I think, it actually and there are, you know, people are introverted, you know, not everybody's extroverted, but I think there are just ways that you can find ways to give something of yourself to, not necessarily to the world, but to the world that is in front of you at this moment, whether it's that person or that dog or that, you know, or even, you know, I'm always getting in trouble for picking up rubbish on the street. You know, oh, don't pick that up. You know, I say, yeah, but it's kind of there. And I'm not saying I'm some great person for picking up rubbish, but I think we all have a need to do something that feels like we have to contribute. And I think this is, I was just like, one of the quite amazing, I think, pieces of writing that I've encountered recently is there's the Canadian TV show called Shorzy, about an ice hockey player, and one of his phrases, you know, that he says to people is, or to himself, is he says, "Well, I have to find a way to contribute," and I think that's really what the messenger is saying, is that we can give something of ourselves in the way that is actually both natural to us, but also at times a little bit unnatural, that makes us come out of our comfort zone in the way that, say, Audrey does to meet Ed halfway, in that way. So I think what we should always be trying to do is to meet those around us in the world halfway, to be making an effort and contribute in some way, which, you know, I wish I could have been more eloquent, but sometimes that's the problem with being a novelist. We use too many words.
No, it's okay. I can't argue about that. As I said earlier in our emails, I'm a medical doctor in Germany, and when we were students at the university, and we taught, probably all of medical students imagined in some level they will be a cardiac surgeon or neurological surgeon or something like that, and they will we will just save lives, as in the Dr. House or something like that, all day, some actions. But right now I'm a medical physician, and I did some rotations on oncology and gastroenterology and something like that. And what I saw in my career in the last 7 years, that daily what we do is sometimes just going to a patient room and talking to them and saying some good words, sometimes not a verbal communication, but just a smile. Even your message to these patients is not that well. They have to stay at the hospital. They have to live with some sickness and something like that. But the small steps, small actions mostly matters most in my world as well. And I think it's not about just one people. If many people do that, it accumulates in some level as well. It goes larger, bigger, and
well, I've just lost you.
Beauty, but we can save in part of the human soul. I don't know.
Yeah,
if I
you're absolutely
but I think
right.
You understand what I mean.
No, it's something that, I mean, and I'm not even saying it's from the messenger. It's from, probably I put it in because that's what I was taught, was that it's the little things that are big, and that's
Oh, yeah.
It's the little things that are big, and that's like, even again, my dad, I realized how much I learned from him was, he would, if there was the tiniest coin on the ground, like a 1 cent coin, and he'd say, you don't deserve the big things if you don't appreciate the little things. And I think that's what you're saying. And I think right. Ultimately that's what that book is about too. You don't have to, you know, it would be nice to cure cancer, but you can, you know, but at the very least, you can make someone feel like they matter to you. And I think again, that's what that book is about, and what our everyday lives are and should be about.
Yeah. All right. I think I'm out of questions. I could think more, but it will be not about a conversation between a publisher and a writer. It will be more personal about my own questions. But I don't want to misuse my chance with this publishing
All
house,
fine.
so I have to stop. But I would like to ask: is there? I know you had a new book, a non-fictional book, last year in September, I think.
Yeah.
I have it already. I don't know where, but I have it already there. Do you have any plan to make a tour in Europe? I know Azerbaijan is a little bit hard, but
Well,
I would like to greet you in any country of Europe. I can just be there.
Well, the next the rest of this year, I'm home, which gives me a good chance to write. And Europe's obviously so far. I've actually been. There's a writers' festival. I think I know in Azerbaijan because I've been in Baku and I've been invited a few times, but it's always been quite close to the date, and I've already had something on, so I haven't been able to come. But of course, if that was to come up, I'd love to, and also Europe in general. I haven't been for a while, so yeah, you never know, and it's definitely possible in the next couple of years. But first, have to get writing. There's
So there is more. There's a new book coming up.
Well, I have to finish something, and I'm really looking forward to writing a little more quickly again, and hopefully, I can finish something this year. But we'll see. I find writing harder as I get older, and but life's too short. I have to get things done, and who knows. Something could happen, and when it starts coming, then it comes quite quickly. So I just have to get in the trenches a little bit, and who knows. But it just has to be good enough so that I can be invited somewhere. But I've had the luckiest life as a writer, and if it was all to end tomorrow, I just would say I can't say I didn't get my shot at the title. I've had a really good life because of it, and because of loving books. Books have given me everything, and I owe readers nothing. I owe books nothing, because I've had more generosity than I could imagine.
Yeah. All right. If you have any message to Azerbaijan readers, I give you the stage. Let me put you on screen alone. No. I think if you speak, you will be on the screen alone. Yeah.
Let's see now. If I'm coming up. I'm not coming up, am I? Oh, yeah, there we go.
No, I didn't manage it. It's okay.
That's all right. I would just say to all the Azerbaijani readers, I just want to say that there are millions and millions, billions of books in the world, and for you to be reading one of mine, that's just the greatest honor. And these books mean so much to me. They mean everything to me. And the fact that they mean something to you, that's even better. That just makes not everything worthwhile. It's the icing on the cake in that way. And I can't believe that I've had this career, and it's really all thanks to you, because you take a chance on me and you've read my book. So thank you, and I'm going to try to keep going, and I'm always going to try to write a better book than the last one. So thanks for having me, and it means the world to me. So thank you.
It's my pleasure. I already told you about it in my emails, but probably the people doesn't know about it. So what you mean? As I told you, I made a new tradition for me. I think when I was 18, so 12 years ago, with giving a new book as a gift to myself. And your book was the first book I began with this tradition. And after 12 years and on my birthday, so I made it finally to publish your book again. I had the opportunity to read the book Thief first, and after it I began with this tradition, and the book Thief was one of my favorites all time, and I read it a couple times as well, and I used it as well to detect people as well. So I gave it as a gift to some people which were very important in my life, and I waited to feedback, and I observed the feeling when they read it the last pages on their eyes, and that was some quite experience for me. So
thank you.
the Wolf brothers as well, they are very important to me. For me, they represent different parts of the young man's life, and yeah. So all of your books have a great what's the word? The great support, the great meaning in my life. So I'm loving it. I hope I will get the chance with the Wolf brothers as well to bring them in Azerbaijan as well, because yeah, in the last couple of years only the book Thief was in Azerbaijan, and the readers read it, and they used the chance to read all of your books in Turkish as well. And I hope, I know my generation knows you very well, but the new generation, they didn't see your books in the last 10 years, your new books, any new books, that's what I mean. But the Nebula will be the chance to meet them with you, and I will be probably the luckiest man alive. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for your time.
No, so great. I'm honored, and to all the the people who appreciate the messenger over the book Thief. They're a special group on their own. So I thank you for publishing it, and if we meet in person one day, no doubt I'll be giving you.
I hope that day will come.
It'll be great. Thanks so much, Hamid, and good luck with everything, with medicine, with your daughter, with publishing. I tell you what, everything you've done by the time you were 30, you're not standing still. So congratulations. I'm looking up to you.
It's nice to hear. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Have a lovely night.
Okay. Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.